With me in the show is Becky. Board Becky, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. And for the people who don't know you, can you give us a little bit of background?
I mean, I don't even know how to introduce myself these days, but yes, for those of you who are on Twitter, my Twitter handle is iamboredbecky. So I run around the internet as my board ape, Board Becky. My name is actually Ashley IRL. Some people may not know that. Becky was kind of this personality I created, not knowing that I was going to go so deep into NFTs and have this sort of more public persona. So the reason why people may know who I am is because I'm the person who took over the smart contract for Fame Lady Squad. So myself and NFT Ignition and now Car Ricketts, we've been running that project since August 2021 as kind of a takeover, take back project where the original founders had basically lied about their identities, claiming to be women, which was really important at that time. It was the first all female generative PFP project. And we've just been grinding, looking at how we can bring value to not just the collection, but the brand and the legacy, et cetera. So now I'm like full-time Web3. I'm full-time Fame Lady Squad, amongst some other things that I think we're going to talk a bit about today. Prior to that, I was in real estate. Like I had maybe owned NFTs for a few months before all this went down and my life just went crazy. So that's me in a nutshell.
Well, I know you via Danielle, and she's very prolific. And of course, your identity is the board apes are really good also at hiding identity, right? So because you sort of have an identity, but you're also sort of hidden at the same time, right?
I've been debating like how to address that, moving forward because I wasn't really intending to be anonymous, and everyone knows who wants to know who I am knows who I am, but um, yeah, I just wanted to run around the internet in a way that didn't reflect my previous professional persona, and now here I am today, just a cartoon ape.
Well, we have a ton to talk about because, you tell me, where do you want to start?
I mean, what the big this isn't necessarily like breaking news, but it's big news for us. Like we've recently, Fame Lady Squad was recently acquired by a company called Daz 3D, who also has a sister company called Taffy. They've been in business operating for over 20 years. They're a technology business. They provide traditionally, like their big core business is providing creator tools for 3D design, which is obviously a very organic place to be if you're thinking about getting into Web3. So over the last couple years, that's exactly what they've done. They started playing in the space. They started bringing in some brand partners and companies and helping integrate them into Web3 and NFTs, and in many ways doing design for a lot of these folks. And then because so many of these companies have no idea how to integrate, have kind of taken it to the next step. So yes, if you've heard of the Timex, the Board 8 Yacht Club, community Timex drop that was done recently, DAO's 3D was involved very heavily in that, or is. They also have a Game of Thrones activation coming up in Q1. That's going to be an NFT collectibles project with a lot of really fun components to it. So this is like a company that's Game of Thrones is HBO, is Warner Brothers. These are like big entities that are really thinking long term, really thinking about how can they enter this space organically, and they happen to be working with the company that now is kind of the parent company for Fame Lady Squad. For us, the reason why did we do this? We took this project over August 2021 with no resources. The founders sold out the project early on. They made their millions of dollars when everything was discovered about them. They, walked away happy with their money and with no responsibility. And we've been, hustling ever since to figure out like how can we bring value to this, et cetera. And really over the course of the last year, our biggest priority was like, how do we expand bandwidth? How do we move from a volunteer driven project to something that's really going to be seen as a business and can bring in revenue and can innovate? And of course, we need help. So we're super pumped to have received that with this company here. We've been talking to them for some time. Officially, we came together. In the fall. I've been a little bit not absent, but I just had a baby, so I'm now just like back
Wow,
to pounding the pavement, which is really
congratulations.
exciting. Thank you so much. Um, and I mean, yeah, that's kind of the short version.
Well, that's quite amazing that you also had a baby in between all the stuff that you're doing. That's, I know how hectic crypto and the NFT space can be. So, wow, congratulations on that.
Thank you. I mean, I don't know that I would have planned it all to have happened on the same year, but that's the way life goes, and we're making it work. So pretty happy.
And you shared this really cool video from Board Apes Club. Maybe this is a good moment to show it to the public, right?
Sorry. So you mentioned this actually before the show, and I don't think I really caught on to what you were talking about. If Danielle had sent you something,
Ah, okay. But I'll just
sorry.
go sort of like a promo video. So,
Mm. Oh, yes. Listen.
wow.
That's great. You know what? Thank you for having that in the queue. I'm glad you're on the ball. But I think that's just so fun and really indicative of like some of the things that to expect, like as we move out of 2022 and moving way past 2021 is like where the value in these NFTs are is these really interesting activation things that are a lot more like IRL, and kind of tying the worlds that we all live in together. So I think it's so fun. And I love seeing all those familiar faces in that promo video. Is really, really cool.
Yeah, because 2022 was quite horrible, also for NFTs. I'm not sure how you experienced that.
I mean, there's multiple sides that I'm sure we're all experiencing. I think we all can probably say, "Oh, we wish we would have made some different moves, made some different decisions," namely as like say on the collecting and trading side. In hindsight, that's easy to do. So I'm sure we all have a few regrets. And it's never fun to be at this part of the cycle. And of course, there's like unexpected challenges that have come to the marketplace as well. However, I also think that the hype train of 2021 was bound to end sometime. I don't think we would have expected that sort of excitement and bullishness and money making to continue at the pace it was going at. So, from more the me, not so much as like a collector and someone that wish I had taken some profit so I could like pay for my renovation I'm doing right now. I'm actually feeling very, very excited about just the general state of like the businesses and how they're looking at this space. I would say there's probably a bit more caution than we would have liked because of some of these things that have happened, FTX, like things that have just kind of maybe made the narrative not so trustworthy, for example, in the public sphere, etc. However, I think that the folks that know that blockchain is the future, like they're looking at this stuff, they're wanting to build, and I don't want to be a broken record or a cliche because I think a lot of us that are on this side of things say these types of talking points now, but I'm just excited. I'm excited to kind of see where the bear market ends. I don't know when that's going to be, but I think once it does, there's going to be a lot of really cool things that come to the surface that are like being worked on right now. I know that's how we feel. There's a lot of things we're working on. It's just it's going to be a totally different environment. I think when we get into the new part of the cycle, whenever that happens to be.
So on your end, you're still experiencing a lot of demand and big businesses coming into the space. Do you think that sort of continues in 2023, or do you see like an improvement in 2023 on that side?
You know, that a lot of this is so anecdotal, right? Like, it's just what I believe and what I'm based on what I'm hearing and some of the conversations I've had with other folks who are, deeply involved in building on their side. Like, we have a podcast, I should share that. It's called From the Blockchain. We had a recent guest, we had Atari, a couple people from Atari X on the show, and one of the sort of really quotable moments was them talking about like it's really just going to take that first AAA to come in and really do something great. There's a lot of companies that I think are on the sidelines watching. They don't want to take the heat. Like people are still a bit conservative about how aggressive they want to be, right? How out front they want to be, especially when there's still a lot of maybe divisiveness around like what is crypto, what is web3, what is this going to mean. I mean more on to the general public. But I think as security measures improve, as I know that there's going to be a lot of different feelings about regulation, but I do think that regulation, once in place, there's going to be a level of comfort for some folks to get more involved. So
Yeah,
we hear
this
people,
was
if they follow through with the things they're talking about, then then it's going to be very exciting.
and it was like you said, it was a necessary phase. It was a big bubble, and it needed to be popped, right? So the good companies and the good people stay, and the bad people go away, right? Because there's nothing to
I
get.
think right now you really see, like, I know we keep saying, oh, building, people are building, but I think when you see people who are really working with integrity and purpose, and it's clear that they weren't here for like the quick dollar, they really have a long-term vision and they're working on that. With all the nuance that comes with Web3, with new demands, from the market and communities and all of that stuff, you can see that, folks are here because they really, really intend to build something. Whether or not they do a great job of it, like that, time will tell. But I certainly think that these people exist, and they're doing stuff that hopefully we'll start seeing being unpacked next year.
So you talked a lot about all the recent developments. What of these developments excites you the most?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I there's lots of different things. Some are small, some are big, right? I can't help but think about AI in this conversation right now. We've seen the explosion of that over the last couple of weeks. And that also goes to show you where, like, if you're not paying attention to the tech and the people working in the tech, how suddenly it can come out of left field and take over everything. Like this chat GPT
Yeah.
stuff and all of the AI art that we're seeing, like this feels like it's just the beginning, and it's way more sophisticated than any of us probably, like me as a layperson, it's way more sophisticated than I would have expected, like out the door. And so that's not necessarily Web3, but I think that it's going to have some really important Web3 integrations. Even thinking about coding, like some of the things I'm seeing people play around with, the AI thing is a whole conversation in and of itself. People have different feelings about what it might mean. But just like Web3, you can't close your eyes to it. I think if any of us are here because we believe in things moving forward and being a part of the evolution of technology, then we have to like pay attention and see what's going on. So that's the one thing that's very top of mind for me right now. I also think that as a project, we're starting to really think about how we can incorporate AI in some of our own initiatives, some of them from like, maybe a bigger, more exciting point of view, but even just like a workplace, like how can we be more productive? How can we get way more done in a span of a week than we would have been able to 6 months ago? So that's something. Um, I'm still like I know everyone's excited about gaming, etc. I'm super pumped about seeing what happens in music and blockchain. So that's an area that I'm going to be watching, and I think similar to what I had said earlier about like it's going to take that big explosion, like that big person or company out front to really make set an example of what can be done. I know we have some really great people in the communities that have done great things, but I think taking it to that pop culture realm will be interesting to see. And then like some of these partnerships and activations, I think that's going to be the trend. Like 2023, the two trends that I think are going to happen are partnership activation. So like we just teased
Yeah.
out a little something on the Fame Lady Squad Twitter page. You can check out, we're doing something with Bugatti. Bugatti has entered the space. They've did some fun things also with members of the ape community recently with, one of one luggage. My ape, Bored Becky, is now on a piece of luggage that's gone retail, is currently online. Hopefully we'll get to like store floors. We'll see, obviously it depends if people care to buy them. Um, but playing around with IP and that's kind of a subsection of that category is like, are people who bought into projects that have a IP being offered, are they starting to like do fun things with them? Or are they just talking about the fact that they think it's cool? So those, partnership things I think are going to be fun to watch. They add real value. The companies that are partnering have probably, they're working in USD, presumably. They're not working in crypto. They're possibly a little more stable than some of us, this year. So I think that's another reason why like a lot of NFT projects are going to find a lot of value in these collaborations. Um, and then the other thing that I think we'll start seeing is mergers, acquisitions, partnerships, like formal partnerships, similar to what's happened with Fame Lady Squad and Daz 3D. I don't think we were the first. I doubt we'll be the last. I keep hearing, we're obviously not the first. I mean, look at Yuga buying CryptoPunks as an example. I just think that's going to be a trend that we're going to see is people coming together with aligned values that see the value add in either acquiring or working together type of a thing. So curious to see how that goes, and I'm happy to be one of the early on experiments, I suppose, in that type of move. And I think looking back in a year from now, we'll be able to show a lot for it.
The early bird, right? Well, the market matures. Did you have the chance to chat with GPT?
I have played a little bit with GPT, and in fact, I've tried, and I was a couple times blocked because the system was so overloaded. But I have played a little bit with it. Trying to understand its limits and trying to look at some of the workflow streamlining stuff the most. And I've actually, like, now that I have my young infant and I'm like up at 3 a.m. On a regular basis, I've started back on the TikTok train and like consuming that sort of content. And now like my TikTok feed like thinks that that's all I want to hear about is GPT. And I've seen a ton of ways people are using it, which has actually really been great for me, like stirring ideas around in my brain, planting some seeds. It seems like this is just very much in its infancy, but the ways people are playing with it, even like as simple as like, how do I create a meal? How do I create a recipe out of what's in my fridge? and then people could go and like make that recipe. But I know that there's some follow-up I want to do. A company we partnered with earlier in the year, Alethea AI, where they take their PFPs of select projects, including Fame Lady Squad, which was actually the first one that they formally launched. You're basically bringing those NFTs to life. And from what I can see is that this type of sophistication in the AI is really going to take that to the next level. I saw they made some sort of announcement. I honestly don't know much about it at this moment, but I expect to see more and more of that kind of stuff coming out, and I'm excited. I'm really excited because I want to start playing around with our fame ladies and my Bored Ape a little bit more in that way.
Do you think there's still room for the little people to sort of enter the space, or will it just be corporations and big businesses?
And do you mean, when you're asking me this, do you mean namely like the NFT kind
Yeah.
of marketplace? I I mean, I think there's both. I think that long gone are the days where someone can just hop in, not know what they're doing, not have a strategy, just be able to get some art together and throw out a 10K collection and sell out. Like some people, I don't want to say got lucky because they were there at the right time, and they took advantage of that, hopefully with good intentions and not bad intentions. Um, but I think those days are long gone. People are just not interested in day trading stuff in that way. I think that there's room for entrepreneurial minded people to really be thoughtful about putting things together. I think there's still, of course, tons of room for true artists. Like this is what this was all about in the beginning, is these visual artists, musical artists, people that have content that they want to get out there, or works that they want to get out there. I think it's time for all of us to step out of the box of like what the launch needs to look like, do you need a 10K collection? Probably not. And most people are not going to be successful with that style, I think, at this point. Like, really being thoughtful about supply, really being thoughtful about, is it generative? Does it need to be? Is it a PFP? Does it need to be? What's the utility? Does there need to be utility if it's for art and collection purposes only? One thing we recently did, and we are still getting, a little bit of heat for, is we put our Discord in read only because it was like a real challenge for us. We've had this conversation kind of at length in a few different ways, but like, if you're launching, do you need these quote unquote traditional launch pads to be successful? I really would encourage people to take this time to think outside the box, really ask yourselves, like, why am I doing XYZ? Is it going to help me reach my goal? Is it something that I need for me? I think there's going to be a lot more awareness on other social media platforms, for example, about some of this stuff. I don't fully understand how Meta and Instagram are playing in this space just yet, but I want to watch and see. I want to, like, are people going to care? Is that going to be a more streamlined way for people to learn about NFTs, for example? Like, I really think that if we're not paying attention as people who are building in this space, especially if you want to launch something new, like, you might be missing something. It can't all be
Yeah.
Twitter. Anyhow, so these are the types of things I know that we're thinking a lot about right now too, is like, when we want to take certain things to the next level, like, what are the arenas going to be where we're really looking to amplify our messages, and how we reach people, and who are they? Do they know much about our story? Do they know anything about 2021? Generally, a lot of them probably won't, right? So these are the things I think to be thinking about right now.
Yeah, and then Discord, right? I share your dislike. I'm not a big fan of Discord, but I totally understand why you put it in a read-only format.
I think the Web3 component is probably important, understanding how to provide certain things, access to certain things to your community that's token gated, right? So
Yes,
that's one of the key things that Discord provides.
true.
But some of the extras, the management, I mean, I've actually seen a couple really wonderful and thoughtful threads on Twitter the last 2 days about about Discord, which I will probably share. I just think I was embarrassed to share them at 3 a.m. when I saw them. So I'll probably share them today at some point. But like the engagement is so far down. The it's really tough to help moderators. It's tough to compensate folks, especially in a market where like perhaps revenue is like non-existent if you're relying solely on like secondary royalties. There's just so many things going on there, and from the start it just wasn't the interface, like actually the user interface for me was
Yeah.
just very challenging. Security
Well,
on top of it all, like, and being the one responsible for all of those people, scary. It keeps you up at night. So there's all these things, but I do think these are the areas where I think we're gonna start seeing, um, solutions. I do think we're gonna start seeing businesses that are coming in to really, address, like, what could be next, but we'll see.
and Trump just launched his own NFT, uh, which looked very unusual. You got Game of Thrones doing their NFTs. So you think all these sort of big media companies and perhaps even politicians, other politicians, are all entering the NFT space soon, or how do you see that?
It's a good question. I'm curious. Okay, first of all, as a Canadian, I'm gonna stay super agnostic on the like Trump card stuff, but I did see that came out. Um,
It's
and
funny.
it begs the question, right? Like, is it a tool? Is it an appropriate tool for people like politicians to raise money? Does there need to be regulation around that? Like, or is it seen as something different somehow? I mean, and then you're gonna have there's nuances, I'm sure, between different countries and how they approach those things. But it does introduce some new things to think about. That's for sure. I uh, I mean, look at that art. I'm gonna leave my comment there.
I think he might have made it himself.
Maybe, maybe AI.
Well, I'm not sure about the AI he's using, but but yeah, and Bored Apes themselves, right? I mean, they also had a very rough year. Can you tell us a little bit about how that went and where you see Bored Apes going?
It's tough to say. I mean, I own 2 bored apes and 2 mutants and 2 dogs and I'm one of these people that mostly buys things and keeps them and doesn't sell them, and that's one of the things I probably regret, you know, looking back. Although I think that early on I decided that, like, I'm not selling my primary ape, Becky, because she's kinda my personality. Now, does my partner like that I've made that decision? Probably not. Like, um, I don't know. I mean, I think from my perspective, my limited point of view is that I think Yuga is still the biggest player in the space. They are probably the most well equipped to do really cool things that came natively out of like the NFT space. I mean, I do think there's probably going to be companies that come in and have really great opportunities just because of their resources and capital, et cetera. But I think Yuga, they've set themselves up where they can be successful. Whether or not they will be, it's anyone's bet. I'm excited to see where things go. I kind of think at this point, while the values are not where they were, that's kind of the nature where things are at right now. And my optimism or hope maybe is a better word. Like, once the crypto market turns around, once the economy turns around, once we're kind of out of whatever this quote unquote recession is going to be, will they have done something cool enough to like make people care and add value? I think if NFTs get mainstream adoption, they have a really good chance at that. And there's two things. I mean, people look at these NFTs and think about their sale values, like that's the value in and of itself, is like how much you can sell it for. Where I think if they're able to make the collection culturally relevant in a way where I, as a holder, can really go out and do something cool with my IP and leverage that, then to me, I'm kind of, generally speaking, more interested in that side of things. Like, how can I monetize my NFTs? How can I make money with my NFTs without ever selling them? How can I get value out of my NFTs? Not to say, if the bull market hit tomorrow and ETH was back up to where it was, would I sell my other ape? Probably, mostly to get my family off my back. But that's, I think they're going to have to do the work. Do I think they're doing it? I think probably. I think they've put themselves in a position where they probably have capital, which matters. Again, if we're all just playing in Ethereum right now, things don't feel so awesome. Your big plans that you probably could have done, you know 9 months ago might need to be shelved, right? And so even us working with Daz, I hope people can appreciate, like, we didn't have any money. We've been grinding and doing a bunch of stuff, but being able to partner with a company that's like on solid footing and has US dollars and can strategically invest, but is still thinking as a business, we still need to prove our value, etc. I think it's a smart move. I think Bored Apes probably have that. They have other things going on though. Like, now people are getting sued for like shilling their Bored
Oh,
Apes.
but
Like,
yeah.
you can't avoid, if you're the biggest name in anything, and you were like in the highs, you're gonna be in the lows, right? Like, you're gonna be thrown. And I don't have much insight into that, other than I just, like, every time I see something, I'm like, shh, just one more thing.
Oh, well, they took a lot of heat, right? And like you said, they were the biggest in the space, so it was logical that they would attract that kind of heat, and
It,
especially with
it's
regulation coming on the line, right? So that's yeah,
someone's gonna have to. Like,
yeah.
it's not gonna not happen. So, yeah. Mhm.
So before we sort of wrap it up, is there something that you want to highlight that we might have missed in this conversation?
Um, I mean, I would just encourage everyone to follow Fame Lady Squad. That's number one, at fame_ladies on Twitter. Stay tuned as we expand our reach on other platforms. Our podcast from the blockchain is available on all streaming platforms, but we are going to be making a move to video and YouTube ASAP. So you'll want to watch for that as well.
Cool.
Um, I think with the Daz side, just, for those in our community who are wondering, like, what's the value add? We're going to have to have a little patience through like Christmas, January, etc. But I'm really excited about next year. I think we've really put our business hats on. We also were part of this like NFT accelerator program, Group Hug, which is the co-founded by Randy Zuckerberg. That kind of happened all around the same time as this, and so we've really been taking a look at, like, from a high level, where do we want to take this? We really see Fame Lady Squad as representing innovation in this space, and definitely elevating women in Web3. And Daz sees that as a priority as well. But you'll want to stay tuned for the Game of Thrones activation. You can kind of you can follow Daz 3D on Twitter as well, because they're going to share anything that's related to their activations. But you can check out Build Your Realm, which is the Game of Thrones Twitter account, and I'm sure that's going to be become more active as things start happening. So that'll be a really good way to stay in touch with that. And I think that Game of Thrones just has such an inherent collectibles value to it. Like, there's going to be other utility tied with this, but to me, this is the type of brand that deserves collectability because there's already such an adoring fan base, rather than trying to create collectability out of something that's brand new that nobody really knows or is familiar with. And then also, of course, check out the Timex stuff if you're an ape holder. I frankly, full transparency, I still have to do that. I've been so busy. I know that they actually lowered the price. There was some talk about it being just like too much in this market. So the price is lowered to 0.69 ETH. You get the NFT watch. That's customized to you. It's also an access pass to other things that Timex will be working on. So I think there's going to be some neat utility there as well. And I actually would say, even if you don't have an ape, I would say if you're interested in the space from a business perspective and like where things are going, these are the types of things to watch. Like, our company, what are companies doing? Are they successful? What worked? What didn't work? What kind of learning can be taken away from that? So I do think there's value in following the story and the journey with some of these folks. Yeah, and they also have their Fight Back Apes project that they recently launched that has its first ever NFT customizer, which is kind of fun. And we may be exploring on the Fame Lady side something similar. So, again, just playing around with innovation, seeing what people like, what hits, that sort of stuff. So check it out. That's
There's a
my
lot
spiel, I think.
of interesting stuff. So was it Zuckerberg, like in family of Zuckerberg?
Oh yeah, that's definitely the sister, the Facebook empire. She's heavily involved in this Web3 NFT space. She's been I don't know exactly when she entered, but she's been around since at least, fall, probably earlier, but fall 2021 is when I think got on my radar. But the accelerator program, the Hug Accelerator program, which by the way, they just did a merger with another accelerator program, Meta Angels, and like that's just goes to show you people are coming together and strengthen
Yeah,
numbers, strengthen ideas. Like we don't need all of this like dispersed stuff. Like if the values are aligned, there's room to like work together and put more into the ecosystem. So that's just an aside. But it's been really neat being able to really look inward, participating in some of this, looking at it from a Web3 perspective, but also keeping in mind some less Web3 business principles, which I think is probably important still right now if we want to
yeah,
be successful. Um, so that's been a fun part of our journey as well. And I do, encourage people to explore those types of experiences if you're thinking about building something. Mhm.
definitely. And
Mhm.
do I also understand that, sort of Fame Lady Squad and Bored Apes might sort of merge together, like coalesce, like you're sort of suggesting?
Man, that would be great. Like, I would love to see my forever lady, like, doing something with my ape. I don't know. I mean, I do think that there's, I definitely don't want to allude to anything there. But I think there's room in these, projects that are the collections that offer IP. Like, there's room for people to do cool things. And I think even in our community, like, since we put our Discord on read only, we've seen more initiative than ever from the community to do their own stuff, to like create their own cool things that's based on their ideas, that, um, is in areas of interest to them. And I think that's great. Like, that's kind of the point with all this IP stuff and just kind of back to the apes. Like, I'm sure there's going to be fun NFT like individuals collabing on cool things. Like, when someone finally creates that like Netflix movie that just takes all their NFTs and throws them together, like I can't wait to watch that story. You know what I mean?
True, true. Yeah, you
Mm.
really need AI in this space, and but it's also really sort of personal. Like you can customize everything to your personal taste and bring it
Yes.
together.
Mhm.
That's really cool about Web3, I think. Uh,
Mhm.
one more question before I let you go, because you're also sort of in real estate, and I mean, NFTs and real estate. I mean, there's like a clear connection there. You have sort of, could you sort of expand on your vision in that regard?
Yeah, so for context for people, before I went down the rabbit hole, I was a realtor. I still am. I'm licensed, but I have not been working over the last year and a bit in that field. But I also happen to be involved in industry related boards, and I still do that, like leadership stuff. And I definitely see, like, that was the reason I got into all of this in the first place. That was the reason I bought my first NFT. I was like, okay, this is a bite-sized experience for me to learn about what are smart contracts. And because like, I do think blockchain and smart contracts are going to impact anywhere where there's consumer transactions or business to business transactions. Like, there, it seems like a no-brainer. I think will property be traded in this fashion? I mean, it's already happening, but it's kind of a novelty. Will it become the standard? Will it become the norm? Um, I actually think there's room to do that really well. It will likely require cooperation from governments. At least where I live, like the land titles system, you would want some integration there, I would assume. Uh, for things to really be happening in a real way. What that's going to mean as well is, depending where you live, will regulators allow crypto payments directly? Where I live, there's a lot of just heavy discussion about money laundering and where
Yeah,
like sort funds are, where they come from. Is a big deal, and I can appreciate in some markets that that's probably more important in some areas than others. um, but I also think that in order to get even millennials, Gen Z, like folks who've maybe made some wealth in the crypto space, how can they legally move that,
yeah,
and in a way that's easy and transparent and like seamless, and maybe provide some cost savings? Like, the possibilities are there. There's just going to be roadblocks, right? I do think that there's going to be some fun experimental things that are probably going to happen that are less the norm and more like marketing things. Probably developers are going to be the first to play around in a real way, like adding value through an NFT and what utility you get. Like, if you buy, one apartment in a building with 300 apartments, like what can that developer offer through something that's token gated? It seems like such a low hanging fruit thing, especially once we kind of get back to a place where people are in the public very excited about the technology. But there's so many things to talk about and unpack in that space. But is it coming? Yes. When? I don't know. And like, how fast? It's going to come slower probably than many would like to think it would, because of those, at least in North America. I think that if you start looking in areas where there's a lot of disparity in land ownership, and a lot of lack of transparency around title systems, there's going to be huge wins for the general people if they're able to get something to work.
yeah, yeah. No, of course they can also transition quicker, right? I mean, a country like China can move this along very quickly if they would
That
want to.
that's a good point, and maybe that's where we should expect to see some of this stuff happening first.
Yeah, yeah, I
Mhm.
think so. Now, I want to thank you again for being on the show and sharing all this amazing news. And I'm really happy for you as a mother, but also as an entrepreneur.
Thank you.
And yeah, can't wait to have you back on the show again.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate the time and appreciate being here.
Everybody, this was the show, and I'll see